Washington County Sewage Authority enforcement's sewage issues. So now that we're pushing forward as fast as we can on this second executed sewage area in the last few years, we need to focus on sewage enforcement with the Washington County Sewage Authority, and I was hoping maybe Sean and Jamie can coordinate that with what law offices.
I believe you mean the sewage council.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Washington County Sewage Council Authority.
The last one.
Any thoughts on that, or is that something that can be worked together with?
They need push, they don't back us enough.
They don't do that.
So recently, due to previous failures of the SEO, the Sewage Enforcement Officer, from the Sewage Council has been working with us and put a new SEO in to serve Union Township. It's my opinion he has been doing as good of a job as he can, and he is working with us and the township to push failures that he finds. After being at Mr. Barnes' property and discovering what was discovered, to a degree, I think the Sewage Council may be limited in their ability to find failures that are beyond what they typically expect. So, from my limited experience, the Sewage Council dye tests a home and then looks for a failure in the dye test on the surface. What they're not capable of doing is finding wildcat sores that are not apparent. And so it seems like the issue at Mr. Barnes' property specifically, it's a hard one to solve, even for us. We've seen a 30-inch pipe full of sewage, and as we're learning now, there's water from rain events seeping into it too. It is so full of sewage, there's no way to investigate it with traditional methods as far as putting a camera up the line or a sewage locator. We see what the problem is. We have no idea right now how far that problem goes. And the only way to really figure out how far that problem goes is to dig it up and actually see it. If we can't stick a camera in it with a locator, we don't know what's going on. So
With that.
And the dye test doesn't work, it's something that bad. No. Well, what I can say from our standpoint, the solicitor for the Washington Sewage Council has been very responsive. He's taken all our calls, he's gotten back to us, changes have been made, and I believe based upon the complaints and the performance, someone lost their job. So it's not like they aren't reacting to what we're saying. And I think Jamie and Sean are having the same experience, that you're getting better service.
We are. I mean, we're going to find out. What Sean spoke to, Mike Barron's worked very well with us on the Barna issue as far as doing the best he could, get into homes to get dye into their pipes so we could see if it was coming out or not coming out. And there were some folks that didn't want to let him in and so on and so forth. They allowed us to do this tank specifically. That was something we wanted to make sure we had permission from the Sewage Council to put such an animal in like this tank that's collecting unknown sewage from several homes. So they worked with us on that. Now there's a complaint that just came in on a apparent sewage issue on a residence on Pleasantview. That's in their court, so let's see how that goes. Let's see how it happens. We'll stay on top of it. But Mike Barron's has promised to us to be better than his predecessor and some of the issues we've had before. So we'll see.
Jamie, I agree, I think the service has gone better, but we've got a real situation on Phillyville and Raymond Road. Can't they write a professional letter of the urgency to help with the permits?
It's possible. We have not asked him for that, but I bet you he'd be willing to give that to us if it will help us move things along.
Yeah.
Is there any way that, is there any record when that pipe, that 36-inch pipe was put in? I mean, probably before any of us even.
I would ask my grandfather, but he's passed on
Well, I
already.
was gonna say, it's so far, it's riveted, you know, it's impossible. This is what I read. Is it possible that could have been put in, the Nike site was put in?
It's possible the lunar landing was fake. I don't know. I have no idea.
I mean, that water gonna come from somewhere,
The flag couldn't fly like that.
right?
Yeah, and to Sean's point, so many of these sewage issues, we go down this rabbit trail and find things that you would never even imagine. Some of them are straightforward, some of them aren't.
This was one of those ones that were very not straightforward and it's historic. And it's so historic that we don't know what to do with it. It's messy.
Will you contact them to write the letter, or
Yes.
should we? do
Yeah,
that?
no, I'll let us reach out to Mike first and say, hey, we're moving to construction on this. You can give us a letter of support to encourage the permits through. That's the way I'll phrase it.
Sean,
Thanks.
do you think you had some alternate ideas? I'm sure you and Jamie spoke with them.
One of my ideas is specifically what Terry, I brought her with me to see what a sewage issue typically looks like. What Terry and I saw on Pleasant View. So, you know, the most likely culprit is the house as close to what is a sewage issue. So, you know, that house, Terry didn't go with me, but I went with Mike Barron, the SEO, to observe the dye test and make sure it was done by the book, and the house passed. So that leaves the question, well, what is it? The house next to that it would come from is vacant. They don't have any running water. The house past that is pretty far away, and they're on a holding tank. So the question is, well, what is that? So, and that specific situation, I mean, I think the best thing we can do to protect the residents is just collect a sample, send it to a lab, figure out what it is. Is it sewage? Is it groundwater? If it is groundwater, you know, it looks different than how groundwater typically seeps out of the hill. If it's sewage, then we know, and we know, well, it's worth spending the $100 the sewage council charges us to investigate a house if the house passes, to go the next houses up until we find the issues, so.
So with that regard, would that be something maybe coordinate with Sweat's office to make sure, because that's a new testing method, correct? I mean, that's something we've not done before, take a lab analysis. So maybe that's something, if that's considered, to talk with Sweat's office.
To Sean's point, it just would give us a stronger indication as to whether it's sewage or groundwater. And the trouble is, even groundwater gets contaminated with coliform and fecal matter because it runs through leach fields. So, you know, it could help us be confident that it's sewage, or vice versa, be confident that it's groundwater, it's clear. But again, to speak to the rabbit trail a little bit more, if you remember Mingo Circle, it was the Williams residents that we were worried about for the longest time, because that's where the sewage was. But it was a house down. It was the Curry residents. And the process we had to go through there was testing each house with different color and figure out which color came out where. We ended up testing five or six houses maybe along that street until we found which one came out. So this one's already headed down the same direction. The house that looks like it is, it isn't. You know, the next thing is, and I don't know enough about this yet, but if there's a holding tank that's 2 houses down, I'd like to have that holding tank pumped and inspected, because a lot of folks with holding tanks get the bright idea to put a little overflow in it. Not saying they have one, I don't know that, but I've seen it before. So, all that to say, this, the SEO's enforcement duties are not as straightforward as we wish they would be. Sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. But I think we've been establishing a pretty good working relationship with Mike Barron's right now.
Well, the law of the sewage facilities law is that we have an absolute obligation to investigate and determine sewage, improper flow of sewage. So if that means sending it to a laboratory to investigate, if it means a dye test, if it means sending a backhoe out to dig up, you have to do that. So you don't need to make motions.
Okay, so Sean,